Doing another My Hero rant video today because gotta keep pumping stuff out every day for the almighty algorithm, you know. Today's topic is sorry I had to yawn there. Today's topic is what happened to the whole plotline about quirkless people. That's something that was seemingly very prevalent early on, with it being a big part of our main character's upbringing. And yet, it's something that the series has kind of put on the back burner pretty hard. Even when we do get quirkless characters, there tends to be a caveat to it. Mirio is quirkless for a little while, but we don't really get much explored with that. He kind of just does what he's always done, just kind of vibed and helped out around UA and stuff. And of course, at the end of the war arc, he gets his quirk back, so he's definitely not someone that's really part of that plotline anymore. Deku himself kinda hasn't really thought much about it since getting One for All. And within the manga, with the whole quirk racism plotline, it's pretty much exclusively focused on mutant quirks, which is another issue that's come up, of course, and definitely should still be addressed. But it's interesting that of all these different types of quirkism, we're kind of honing in on just the one in particular, and it's not even the one that, like, the main character is actually affected by. It's kind of a weird choice, narratively speaking. That you would think that this whole quirk racism plotline would somehow have worked in the whole Quirkless and the other non-mutants that still are quote-unquote villainous, with characters like Shinso, or the whole deal about people that have quirks that are like really simple and not very flashy, like someone like Kirishima. Like, there's a lot of different angles where this sort of quirk-based inequality has come up. And it's kind of weird that this whole plot line, you would think that those things would kind of end up tying together somehow. But a lot of it's kind of been just kind of brushed under the rug so far. Maybe it will still get addressed later on. I mean, there's certainly a lot of hanging plot lines yet in this final arc. So I'm sure that a lot of things are gonna have to get addressed somehow before the actual, like, real final battle can be had, because, like, it's already gone on for almost as long as the overhaul arc. Might as well just make it like a massive arc that even dwarfs the first war at this point. Drag the series out a few more years. But anyway, these are a lot of common criticisms of the series at this point. That some of these plot lines kind of get shuffled around, out of focus. But the focus of this video is the quirkless one in particular. Because again, that's the one that relates to, like, our main character, who we're supposed to, like, relate to the most and see things from his perspective. So it's kind of an odd question of what happened to this plotline? Where'd it go? Are there any characters remaining that actually are affected by this and have to deal with that and have that explored? And I think there is one big one, actually, that we can talk about that a lot of people do overlook. And that is none other than Toshinori Yagi, the man who was formerly the most powerful of all, is now reduced to being entirely powerless, and we do see multiple times where he has to cope with that. We see how he begins to take his teaching duties more seriously, how he does things like start working out again so that his body isn't as weak anymore, because he got reliant on the quirk's power itself. So now he's got to work his strength back up the old-fashioned way. We've seen how he does things like start baking sweets for the students as a hobby of sorts. And of course, in the final battle, we've seen him start to take on this sort of leaderly role, with mixed results. I personally think that pretty soon we're going to see him acknowledge, okay, yeah, this wasn't a very good plan. Deku, you're the smart one here. You come up with something. I feel like that's where that's going, honestly. And I think that this does also tie into something I discussed in the central theme video, that even if you are powerless, there's always some little thing you can do. However small it may be, it might make a bigger impact than you think. We do see this with All Might as well. After the whole Kamino event and all that causes him to lose his power, he does all these things to cope with it. And we even see the speech that he has with Aizawa before the first war about how just being there and just giving his reassurance can be very helpful, actually. So I think that, yeah, this plotline kind of rests with All Might now. Like, he is sort of the Quirkless perspective at this point. And I think that is one of the reasons that I am not a fan of the whole, well, what if Eri rewinds him and then he's back to prime form and theory. And I know it's a popular theory, but narratively it's just a huge step backwards. All Might is quirkless now, and he's already learning to deal with that. For him to do what Mirio did, which also did piss a lot of people off, I guarantee that if All Might just Eri Ex Machina'd his way back to prime power, people would realize, oh wait, this kind of ruined things, I don't want this actually. Be careful what you wish for with these kind of popular fan theories. They don't always make a ton of sense in the context of the larger story. But if I'm going to criticize popular theory like this, I should give my own take again. Like, with the central theme video, I did present the whole everyone becomes their own unique kind of symbol idea, which is a theory I've had actually come up with probably a year or two ago at this point. I've shared it in, like, Discords and stuff. But I don't know if it's ever really caught on beyond these specific communities. So my theory for what All Might is gonna do is, again, he's gonna hand the planning over to Deku. So Deku steps up as a leader and all that stuff, and comes up with a plan that actually works this time. But All Might himself, I think, does have a different way to rejoin the fight without actually needing to get his old power back. I think there is a new way that he can join the fray that theoretically anyone could use, Quirkless or not. And that is something that has been a common but understated part of the series, is support gear. That is, like, we've seen characters like May able to whip up any kind of gadget you could possibly need. And I think that it is not out of the realm of possibility for the support course to create some sort of, let's call it the all-for-one buster, some powered armor of sorts, basically, if they all work together. We've seen how, like, May herself can whip up just about anything, but when the entire support course works together, they're able to make stuff like the blasters that Bakugo used that pretty much looked like they assembled themselves out of nanomachines, which is extremely impressive. Like, the support course could really make just about anything if they, like, all put their heads together and worked toward one project as a group. I think they could definitely make just about anything that anyone could possibly need. And I think this does tie into the sort of allegory for quirklessness as a disability of sorts as well. That, like, support gear is pretty much designed to, like, shore up your weaknesses and whatnot. If you've got a quirk you can't control, support gear. If you've got a quirk with some big weakness, support gear. Why not let people with just no quirk to begin with? Why not see what they can do with support gear? Now, of course, at the beginning of the series, this was obviously not really an option because support gear was something that only heroes could use to begin with, of course. But again, we've seen here how heroes are crumbling, and, like, the industry around them is pretty much defunct at this point. Like, the only heroes left fighting are the ones that are really in it to save the world at this sort of point in the story. And we've seen, again, things with, like, the civilians doing whatever they can do. Which, kind of a sub-theory here, I kind of wonder if the civilians inside UA might be a more active part in the story than we realize as well down the line. I could definitely see there being a situation where UA and people like Gunhead and all them come together to train the civilians to also, like, properly defend themselves in the case of a villain inevitably getting inside. That they need to be ready in case a hero can't respond in time. They need to be ready to act as a group themselves and deal with the issue. Which, I mean, yeah, that sounds kind of Liberation Army-y, but, like, again, the villains in the series don't just come out of nowhere. Like, we do see times where the bureaucracy, where the protocol gets in the way of actually doing the right thing. We have this lawful versus good kind of debate going on, especially in the Vigilantes spin-off as well. So I could definitely see there being a situation where they kind of have to, like, acknowledge that, okay, like, the Liberation Army was a bunch of terrorists. Yeah, they kind of sucked. They kind of used this as an excuse to do lots of terrible things, and kind of just became, like, generic anime fucking social Darwinists out of it. But, like, the root problem that society's laws are kind of getting a bit too strict and oppressive at this point. The series does support that. Like, that is a thing that's going on in this world. Like, we do see how even the heroes are held back heavily by this at times. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, though. If it wasn't obvious enough that these videos are not actually scripted, I'm literally just rambling stream of consciousness, then there you go. Just a complete tangent about other, like, subplots and stuff going on. But anyway, yeah, back on, like, the All Might with the Quirkless plotline, I could definitely see him getting a sort of powered armor deal that's, like, specifically designed to help him out a bit, or at least some kind of like weapon or gear to help him fight. But I think that some kind of armor is probably likely for one other specific reason, that it would allow a callback to bring something full circle, where we know that Deku's costume was initially inspired by All Might. Like, he tried to mimic how All Might looked and whatnot, but as the series has gone on, his costume has started to distinguish itself and become designed specifically for him more and more, and he doesn't even wear the All Might bunny hood half the time in the series. So I think that, and we've also seen how, in a lot of ways, All Might does become more and more like Deku as the series goes on as well. With the Quirkless and the becoming a leader and all that kind of stuff. So I think the perfect way to bring that full circle, to cap off their sort of role reversal going on, would be for this All Might powered armor to also look like Deku. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think as a sort of full circle, callback, parallel, what's the word? Bookend, that's the word. As a bookend, I think it would be very fitting to show how no longer is Deku the one chasing All Might and then being inspired by his hero, but now Deku has officially left his hero in the dust and surpassed him to the point that now his hero is being inspired by him in turn. I think this would be the perfect way to really solidify that. And of course, with the everyone becomes symbols theory, that could also play into this, that even if you're entirely quirkless, hey, I mean, you could always use that and be like this representative for other quirkless people, to like keep them inspired and going and whatnot. So yeah, that's sort of my discussion in theory again. I actually have a lot to say about this series. Like, I am fucking obsessed with this series. I will weaponize my autism to info dump all over you. I will just mutter for hours on end like Deku if given the chance. So, I mean, maybe if this one does as well as the last one did, maybe I'll keep making these. Maybe I'll start pumping out more of these, talking about like different themes and theories and aspects of the series and whatnot. I think another one that I want to do pretty soon is trying to predict the roster for the next One's Justice game once we inevitably get the third one after the series is over, because at this rate, that's probably how long it's going to take. I mean, they're clearly getting their mileage out of the second one with the DLC and stuff, so yeah, I'll see y'all probably next week, I guess, or whenever I next upload, I suppose. Still trying to figure out what a schedule that works is. I think doing things daily might not actually work that well in the long run. It's definitely not sustainable. But maybe I could manage weekly or something, you know? I still do need to figure that out. Excuse me. But for right now, I think that like the algorithm demands that I try to get something out every day at least, if possible, in order to keep the momentum up and whatnot. So I'll see y'all whenever that is.